Welcome to this spoiler-safe reading of the 6.1 patch notes. I will not be covering 100% of the patch notes, but I will try to cover everything that I am able to. PvP in particular is something I will not cover much. Spoiler-safe means the following. I will do the reading in order of spoileriness, meaning that spoilers for A Realm Reborn will come before HEAVENSWARD and so on. And I will give a clear warning signal when I move into spoiler territory. Make sure to listen for those. Now then, let's start with job changes, the longest and most exciting part. Lucid Dreaming is now learned at level 14 for all healers. And the tank stance's cooldown has been reduced to 3 seconds. This mostly means that you can switch out of the tank stance faster if you change your mind. Paladin changes. All of your magic spells now no longer cancel your combo, and once learned, all of your attacking spells, including the blades, has the 400 cure potency added. Additionally, finishing your requiescat with something other than Confiteor still allows you to use the blades now, as the activation of the blade combo is tied to the requiescat ending rather than a combo action with Confiteor. Warrior changes. Overpower has been changed to be a circle AoE instead of a cone. This may take some practicing to get used to if you played Warrior a lot previously. Additionally, Inner Release now only applies to Fell Cleave and Decimate, so you should no longer have to worry about wasting the stacks on the wrong buttons. Also, the crowd control immunities in Inner Release is now a separate buff. These changes of course do not apply to Berserk. Dark Knight changes. Blood Weapon no longer requires you to have specific skill speeds to perform 5 actions in time, as it now has a duration of 15 seconds and 5 stacks. As such, it is also no longer a requirement to late weave it, and you also no longer need to go out of your way to plan fancy quietus sequences to make it in time. Stalwart Soul is now learned as early as level 40. Flood of Darkness got a small nerf, but since this nerf does not apply to Flood of Shadow, this is mostly intended to balance around Dark Knight having Stalwart Soul so early. Living Dead got a huge upgrade. It now causes your global cooldowns to heal you for an enormous amount, and also, if you should heal enough to cancel the buff, it now turns into a new buff. This buff is called Undead Rebirth and is identical to Walking Dead, but without the part where you die. Dragoon changes. All of your jumps except for Stardiver have had their animations reduced significantly. Also, jump and high jump changes into Mirage Dive while you have the buff, meaning you need one less button on your hotbars. Whether these animation reductions mean you can double weave jumps now is uncertain. Ninja changes. Hide now deletes your Dotton, so no reason to try and prep that one on boss fights anymore. Additionally, Dotton has had its potency reduced so much that it is never worth using on a single target, and with the Raiju options at level 90, it might not even be worth using on 2 targets. However, I am not versed enough in Ninja to know this for certain. Similar to Dragoon, Shukuchi has had its animation reduced. Trick Attack's raid affecting damage increasing debuff has been replaced by a debuff that only applies to yourself. Instead, Mug now applies a debuff similar to the old Trick Attack debuff. Finally, a bunch of actions have had a few buffs and nerfs to their potencies, including Melee Mastery being moved to level 74 instead of 84. I imagine most of these potency changes won't change the actual rotation much. Ninja does learn another Melee Mastery at level 84 to fill the gap. Samurai changes. Hisatsu's Kaiten has been removed. To compensate, Hisatsu's Shinten has been moved to level 52 from 62, and Hisatsu's Kyuten moved to 62 from 64. What this means is that careful Kenki management at lower levels is far less significant, and that the cost of Gyuten and Yaten is far less of an issue. It also makes the opener far simpler since Kaiten is removed completely. You simply skip that part of any opener or rotation and use Shinten or Kyuten wherever is convenient instead. Speaking of Hisatsu's Yaten, the backstep, has gotten its animation shortened. Midari Setsugeka, its Kaishi variant, as well as Ogi Namikiri and its Kaishi variant has been made to always do critical hits. Make Your Shisui can no longer be wasted on NP, and Third Eye now lasts an extra second, making it easier to land. Tenkagoken, the AoE EI jutsu, now has a circle AoE around you instead of a cone, which may take some getting used to. To adjust Samurai according to all these new changes, there are a vast amount of potency changes. The main concern is how Kaiten being gone changes the rotation, although my expectation is that it exclusively makes it simpler. To fill some gaps, Samurai now also gets some traits that boost potencies further at level 66 and 84. A general change. The adjustment of animation times on movement actions is pretty universal, so just stop mentioning it now. Bard changes. Battle voice can now be used separately from your songs, although this probably changes nothing for your rotation. Wanderer's Minuet now automatically changes into pitch perfect during the song, which can be very confusing if you're used to having these two actions as separate buttons. Overall, it does mean you have less buttons on your hotbar. Finally, while the soul voice gauge already had a sound cue when full, it now also will have the same cue when you reach 80 or more to indicate you will get the blast arrow proc. The gauge now also visually changes when at 80 or more. Machinist changes. Lots of potency buffs, although it should not affect your rotation much. The biggest one is probably that Wildfire got a 50 potency boost, which means getting those Wildfire burst windows right becomes more important. Dancer changes. Standard step, technical step, as well as the actual dance steps are now considered weapon skills. This is completely irrelevant to you as a dancer, but Reapers and Monks both have buffs, Arcane Circle and Brotherhood, which trigger on weapon skills and spells, but not abilities. The buffs granted by your regular GCD combos have been renamed somewhat. Cascade and Windmill instead grant Silken Symmetry, while Fountain and Blade Shower instead grant Silken Flow. This does not mean much, but your ability Flourish will still grant the original Flourishing Symmetry and Flourishing Flow. What this means is that as long as you don't have a Fandance 3 proc ready, Flourish will not go to waste, so it is much easier to use. If for instance you have both a Silken Flow and Flourishing Flow buff, it means you will be able to use Fountain Fall or Blood Shower twice back to back. Finally, the Esprit gauge now visually changes when you have 50 or more. Summoner changes. All of the Ruby spells have had their recast time increased to 3 seconds. This means that using Swiftcast on it will no longer be considered a DPS increase, as the GCD is longer than the cast timer. Additionally, Searing Light, the raid buff, is now centered on yourself rather than the carbuncle, so you have little to no reason to try and move the carbuncle for positioning reasons now. All of the Ruby spells also got a significant potency boost to compensate for the recast timer increase. White Mage changes. All of your stone spells and arrow spells got a cost reduction. Arrow also had their durations normalized to 30 seconds. This does not affect Glare or Dia. Regen also had its cost reduced slightly. Cure 3's area of effect has been nearly doubled. It is still smaller than Medica though. Asylum had its area increased as well. Liturgy of the Bell can now be used as an ability while it is already placed to cause it to detonate early. Finally, Lilies. The generation time has been reduced from 30 to 20 seconds, and Afflatus Misery, the Blood Lily, got a huge potency boost, although its area of effect component got reduced. The significant part here is that Misery now does exactly the same damage as 4 Glare 3s, so using Lilies is no longer a DPS loss. And now you also get Lilies more. Yay! Scholar changes. Your low-level Ruin and Bios have had their cost reduced slightly, although this does not affect your high-level options. Your Fairy's Embrace now has an even larger targeting range. Sacred Soil also got an area increase. Expedient, the raid-wide sprint ability, had the duration of specifically the sprint portion of the buff cut in half. Astrologian changes. Combust 1's damage over time component had its duration normalized to 30 seconds. And finally, Sage changes. Doses 1 got a slight cost reduction. Soteria now only has 4 stacks, so there's no way to get more than 4 heals out of it. However, it also had its healing boost increased to 70% from 50%. The general difference is that you no longer have to late weave Soteria to get its full value. Finally, when you enter a dungeon or raid, or respawn, you will immediately get 3 Adder Stings to use on Toxicon. All of my guides contain patch notes as a pinned comment, and in some cases, these patch notes will be more detailed than what I went over just now, so feel free to take a look at those if you felt that my descriptions here were a bit sparse. Now, to some more general changes and additions. The system known as Trust, which was exclusive to Shadowbringers and Endwalker, has been expanded to include the main story dungeons of A Realm Reborn, enabling players to run these dungeons solo with NPC assistance instead of players, if they so choose. Knowing how trust has worked in the past, it is a known fact that doing it with players is always faster, so don't feel discouraged from running with other players due to this new option. This new system is renamed to Duty Support. In any old encounters where you could fall off the arena and be too far away to be raised by other players, you now will be able to be raised. The Fist in Palm emote that is used a lot in the main story is finally becoming a usable player emote. Most of the remaining gear in the game that is gender specific can now be equipped by both genders. Hrothgar and Viera are getting some more hairstyle options, and Hrothgar specifically are getting some new facial features. There are a whole bunch of quality of life changes, mostly minor. I will not cover all of them. For instance, some things related to the visual presentation of leaves. Collectible crafts now can show the different collectability tiers directly in the crafting window, so you no longer have to keep notes on this. You can also have 5 more glamour plates now. And possibly most important, you can now use a checkbox in the market board to only show things like orchestrions that you don't have. And also, these kinds of items will have a checkmark on them in the market board if you do have them. In your currency menu, you can now enable multiple currencies to appear in your UI. In character configuration, you can set the game to auto-target an enemy when pressing attack buttons. This can be especially convenient if you have issues where you often accidentally target allies when you want to target enemies. It is also a useful way to quickly retarget a boss when they reappear, or to switch to a new target in AoE encounters if your current one is dead. A profile card feature known as the Adventurer Plate has been added. This card can be customized a lot and even includes a profile picture. What exactly you can use it for is hard to say, but it is certainly a much more detailed piece of information for those interested than a simple text message. By accessing the bed in an inn, you can now use the Dream Fitting feature to try mock station outfits before purchase. A short pass by PvP changes. The feast season is over and a new PvP mode, the Crystalline Conflict, has been added. Given my inexperience with PvP as a whole and the new and freshness of this content, I will not attempt to explain exactly how all this works. However, I can say that it does look fun. Both PvP and the Gold Saucer allows you to acquire special event armor sets from a rerun of the Garo event. New things have been added to the Gold Saucer, including a mount, although this requires that you have completed the Shadowbringers Alliance raids. More Triple Triad cards have also been added alongside new opponents. New company chest crests have been added alongside new company workshop recipes. The subaquatic voyages also got some new additions. These company chest crests appear to be usable for PvP teams as well. Regarding treasure maps, there are new rewards added to the Excitatron 6000. The new lottery housing system has been implemented. The way that this works is that when a house plot is for sale, it will display an auction deadline, and to participate in the auction, you need to offer up the full price of the house. Then, at the deadline, a random player among those in the lottery is picked, and as they claim the house, everyone else gets their money refunded. You cannot pay multiple times to have multiple lottery vouchers on a single house. Additionally, housing on Oceanic servers are now available for purchase in general. Looking forward, there will be private and free company dedicated wards too, and there will be some restrictions to new players in a free company doing the lottery voucher thing. Finally, a lot of new housing items have been added, including more stuff from the 2019 design contest. First spoiler alert! Now, we're entering a point where minor to major spoilers for the level 1 to 50 storyline of A Realm Reborn may appear. There are a few quests that are getting adjusted so significantly that if you are on them specifically, you will have to start them from the beginning again. These quests are Operation Archon and The Ultimate Weapon. Significant changes have been made to some A Realm Reborn dungeons. However, what these changes are have not been given in significant detail. The dungeons affected are Copperbell Mines, Thousand Maws of Totorak, Hawk Manor, Bravelox's Longstop, Themail Darkhold, Stone Vigil. At the same time, the first trial, Cape Westwind, has been deleted and remade as a solo scenario instead. Castrum Meridianum, the short one of the MSQ roulette, has been adjusted to a 4-man encounter instead and has been adjusted just like the dungeons previously mentioned. The Praetorium, the long one, has also been adjusted to a 4-man encounter, and the boss fights at the tail end of it has been removed. The Porta Decumana has been added as a separate encounter which is just the Ultima weapon fight. The La Habrea fight at the very end has been deleted and remade as a solo scenario instead. Finally, some Realm Reborn encounters have had indicators adjusted for battle mechanics. Here, we can expect to see some of the more modern indicators, like the stack marker circle instead of arbitrary AoE markers like the orange crystal. Second spoiler alert, the following changes are spoilers for HEAVENSWARD, covering level 51 to 60 especially. The Ishgard housing district is open for purchase, making use of the new lottery system. The Wondrous Tales books are getting some simplification. Instead of having a task that involves one specific fight in a raid, it will require any fight in a specific wing of the raid, giving you typically 4 different options to choose from. Chloe's sales options for commendations have also been adjusted, mainly with the introduction of the newest Unreal encounter, which is Ultima's Bane. The extreme version of the Thordan trial now has Gunbreaker, Dancer, Reaper, and Sage weapons. Third spoiler alert, the following changes apply to Shadowbringers content, level 80 side content specifically. The special scenario dungeons of Bostia and Zadnor have added a cache to adjust your lost actions at the entrance. The XP awarded for finishing these scenarios have also been significantly increased. I assume the intent here is that players doing Bostia for the XP feel more inclined to bother with these difficult encounters. Fourth spoiler alert, this applies to the level 81 to 90 Endwalker story, but is mostly mechanical. During the Endwalker main quest, you will have quests where an NPC will follow you around. These will no longer disappear if you escape from them. In fact, they will be very difficult to get away from accidentally. Final spoiler warning. The rest of the video applies to general Endwalker changes and additions. Surprising no one, there is new main scenario quest stuff. I will not go into any details about this since the only things mentioned about it will be clear once you log in anyway. By extension of this, New Game Plus has been expanded to the vast majority of quest lines added in Endwalker. A bunch of side quests have been added, including a combined finale to the role quest lines of Endwalker, which of course requires that you complete all of the role quest lines. The Unending Codex is a new feature that enables you to read up on the knowledge you have about different NPCs in the main story. This can be super helpful, especially if you have been away from the main quest for a while and need a refresh on the characters. Or if you just want to learn more, as I can imagine they might include extra tidbits. Returning players may also find this incredibly helpful. The Bicolor Gemstone traders have gotten more things in their stores. The normal version of Pandemonium Asphodelos now have removed its weekly loot drop limitation, except the 4th Circle's Unsung Blade drop. On the bright side, you only need 4 of these to buy a Radiant item level 590 weapon instead of 7. You can spend Tomestones of Aphorism alongside crafted item level 580 gear, preferably high quality, to trade them for item level 590 versions of the same gear. Keep in mind that you need 3 pieces of the same equipment of normal quality to afford the upgrade, while you only need 1 high quality. You can also exchange different gear pieces, since you exchange them for universal tokens. A new alliance raid, Aglaya, has been added. This raid will likely drop item level 590 armor, and has a weekly logout on each boss's drops, just like Pandemonium used to. Clearing the raid will give you a token you can exchange for the material necessary to upgrade a radiant armor or jewelry piece to item level 600. This is also logged out weekly. The extreme version of the final trial has been added. Knowing how previous expansions have panned out, this trial will likely drop item level 595 weapons. Additionally, this encounter, alongside the Savage and normal versions of Pandemonium, will have a slower fade out after a wipe to give you a chance to see what went wrong before the fight resets. The materials needed to upgrade Radiant gear to item level 600 can also be purchased for an exorbitant amount of sacks of nuts, enabling you to skip the weekly logout to some degree by investing a lot of time in hunts. Remember that the materials to upgrade these Radiant gear pieces drop directly from Savage Pandemonium bosses too. That is all for this reading. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more Final Fantasy XIV content like this from me, you can both choose to subscribe or follow me on Twitter, where new videos will also be announced. If you have any questions or anything to add, please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, Black Mage and Blue Mage are the only jobs that got 0 changes, even if a few jobs like Monk only got a change so minor that it is not even worth mentioning.